Alrighty, hi everybody, welcome. Thanks for coming, whether you're here or not. um, Hopefully folks can hear me. Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna start by calling in the spirits to be with us today. I call out to the ancestors, to those who lived and died well, both my ancestral helping spirits and all those who would join us at any time on this broadcast. I call out to you, true ancestral helping spirits, luminous ones, ancient ones, all those who hold the wisdom of what it is to be a human, all those who hold the wisdom of what it is to be healthy and to be healed and to be whole and knew what that was in relationship and in community. And it's particularly at times that may have known conflict or a great change or challenge. I call out to you, ancestral helping spirits, and I ask you to be here with us. Please gather around and work with us in this call today. Help us to have a nice, robust container. Help us to hear what we need to hear and really let it land, let it be fertile for us and help us to say what we need to say, help the questions to come through that need to be asked, and help these proceedings to really go forward in a way that we continue our lives in a way that we can become true ancestors and really turn to the needs of our descendants in a good way and the needs of our planet. I call out to each of our helping spirits and all the many forms and faces that they wear and take, the spirits of the land where each of us reside, and the spirits of the land that are the background and not just the background, but the actors and the participants in my life here. And I call out to our most ancient ancestors. I call out to Earth element. I honor you and I thank you and I ask you to be present here with us. Help us to really be manifest in this work. Help us to be here. I call out to air. Help us to listen, to breathe, to um, to laugh when we need to know what it is to have our burdens lightened a little bit, and to know when the things that are heavy, just need to be heavy. Help us to know, to see, to know how to engage our senses in a good way. I call out to fire. Ooh, you most ancient one, ask you to be here and really warm and radiate us from the center of our circle here today. Help us to be alive and animate. It's really funny because the fire candle, which anchors my elemental shrine, has been chattering and it just stopped when I said that. Fire, I love you. Thank you. Please help us to know what it is to choose, to apply our will in the right way. And I call out to water, help us to have flow and balance and movement and synergy, and help us to shapeshift, help us to know what it is to really transform and to change and yet stay true to who we are. With all of those ancestors and helping spirits gathered around, I invite you to envision that we now stand in a circle here together, those of us who are here live and those of us who will be here at any other time. Imagine that that circle includes both your physical body and physical space and the non-local aspects of your body here in this non-local space that we seek to create with our shared intentions and attentions and curiosities. And as you step into that circle, signal to your body that you move into sacred space. And as we stand in this circle here together, I invite you to just drop an anchor. Really let your body connect with the body of the earth below you. Earth, so beyond just the elemental form. Earth, you in your most planetary, you in your most essential, true yin, energetic essence. You who rule the underworld and you who know all that lives in darkness and stillness and silence, all that is potential before it becomes form. And I invite you to draw that potential up from the heart of the earth, up through the cord that you've created between your root and the earth itself. And invite that silvery moonlight, water, spring, whatever energy, however it manifests for you, to really just soak into your body, to really nourish and fertilize and moisten the soil that you have so that any seeds that may be planted today can really have something nice to take root within. Let it tonify you down to a more pure quality of your essence and let it stabilize and strengthen. Really lean into that feeling of support that the earth will always be below you. And even if you become an astronaut, there's still a true yin to root into. And as you let that earth energy rise up into your belly and your heart and your head and flare out through your skin and fluff out into your boundaries, those intelligent and responsive membranes that separate you and yours from what is not you and not yours. Just see if that can open up like a flower and open towards the sky. Receive that spotlight of the divinity, of sanctity, of true yang, that movement and light and heat and expression and expansion that lives in all that is above. Divinity, I call up to you, Sky Father, Sky Parent, in all your many faces and forms. And I ask that you bless and protect us. I ask that you inspire us and enliven us and ignite us with the passion that we need here. Ignite us with that spark, that will to live, because we just want to know what that new day might bring. And that need for true health that is born of that tender vulnerability of not knowing what the next day might bring. That need for that particular resilience that comes from connection with the divine and connection with the earth. And start to welcome that connection back down, that golden, however you see it, radiance from the above, the light. Let it mix with the dark, knowing that these energies are not in opposition, but actually complementary, knowing that these energies are lovers. Let them flow and swirl and mix and mingle within you. Let them ignite your head, your heart, and your belly. Let them bring you to a newer, truer understanding of your essence, of the person that you are now in this moment, and that you could rise to be in this moment, even if that excites or inspires or surprises you, surpasses your expectations. And then settle back into your heart center as we turn towards the work that we'll do here today. May what needs to be said be said. May what needs to be heard be heard. May these proceedings go forward in a way that is good and true and beautiful for all life. Thank you. So, welcome, humans. Hello. Thanks, everyone who's been watching and commenting and talking to me about it. It's been super fun to get back on the groove here with the podcasting. So, I'm kind of like deciding to bridge the gap between what I was doing in the fall, where I was like just sharing really specifically from my healing process as a part of my healing process, and what I endeavored to do like for a couple weeks where I was like, I'm just going to talk about astrology because I love astrology. And at this point, I'm just like, well, here's the thing. So I do love astrology. It's a big part of my practice, and a big part of my practice, which is spirit work, includes, engaging with different divinatory forms. And I've found that astrology is one of my main sort of non-direct divinatory forms, in terms of I use the shamanic journey form that I study from my shamanic teachers for all of those things and for many things. And yet there's always a moment, there's many moments where I need a different form, whether it's runes, tarot, etc. But for me, astrology is kind of that thing, is it that really helps me not only to get divination when I'm feeling stuck, but also to always locate myself in time and space. And so that's what I think is really unique about astrology. And for me, it's all sort of landing in this hypothesis slash this endeavor to be a living, practical, effective, truthful embodiment of what I'm considering animism slash shamanism. They're different, but they're similar and related. Um, as taught by both my teacher Christina Pratt at the Last Mass Center, and also like as inspired by many people that are describing a contemporary way of doing animism and way of describing relationality and the way of relating with humans and non-humans as animist. So Daniel Foer is another teacher that I really admire and appreciate his work around that. And his website is Ancestral Medicine. I'm reading a book by Graham Harvey that I found out through Daniel that called Animism, which is super excellent. But, I think there's a lot of teachers doing this. Starhawk and the Pagan Wiccan Collective Reclaiming, also really consonant, and folks that I studied with here and there over the years. So there's a lot of things that have kind of all led me to this. And animism is just one word that I like right now. I don't know how it'll change. But so I wanted to ground the astrology in my context because I feel like astrology in really anything, whether it's education, information, emotion, experience, landing in the wrong body, landing in a wounded child framework, landing in unhealed, unaddressed trauma, in great, swaths of unconsciousness and shadow, it's going to become abused. It's just like, that's just the way that life is. And so I really wanted to ground, why I really want to teach the things that I'm learning to teach, what they do for my practice and how they actually dovetail with astrology and receiving spirit information and acting from it, um, and what that means in terms of this idea of health and healing, because there's a lot of alternative medicine, a lot of like health healing talk. There's so much being sold to us right now that is like healthy. I hate the word healthy actually, as it's used in contemporary culture. Like my certain members of my family who are from really different generations and have really different understanding of the word healthy will kind of use it passive aggressively against each other. Well, I made this healthy. And it's like, well, what do you mean by that? And what are you trying to even say? Why are you even saying, you know what I mean? It's a really funny thing that I'm noticing right now. So that's one thing that I want to talk about is what is health? What is healing? Why is that important in order to engage with spirit directly? And to land that like in the contemporary world that we live in right now, we all are victims of religious violence. There's no way to get around that. I don't, and that may not be the thing that you've noticed yourself as having been harmed by the most, depending on where you were raised and what kind of context you live in and what things also harmed you more that you're more attentive to. But at the essence, at one of the roots of colonization, it's from my understanding, is the abuse of religion, institutionalized religion, which is ultimately the abuse of information given to humans by spirit. And, there's all kinds of ways to frame that. That's just how I frame it. You frame it however you want. I don't care. But for me, it's information given to humans by spirit that was greatly abused, and is still being greatly abused. And I would suggest that there's also ways that science has been greatly abused in the same way, and that there's just as many miraculous, eureka, spirit-driven, spirit-led moments that come to us through the scientific method as there are through the direct revelation that we're working with in different spiritual traditions. So not that they're the same thing or the same kind of methods, but ultimately for me, I endeavor to be kind of a scientist. That's how I am being trained in the community and the teachings that I'm a part of. It's like very, very rigorous, which is really challenging because I actually am much more comfortable being real sloppy, which I may be being very sloppy right now. It remains to be seen. So what is health and why is it important for receiving information from spirit? So for me, my understanding of health comes principally from, well, I mean, from a lot of sources. And so one thing that I will introduce right away is my way, a very simple way of organizing um, the human so that we can start to get a handle on this really big idea. Because one thing I'll say that health is probably not is, what's being sold to us as health, either physical ideas that have a lot to do with whiteness and, really particularly cishet, transphobic, etc., ideals of beauty and things like that, really colonial beauty standards, colonial and sort of capitalist, like neoliberal ideas around like health, wellness, like green, this, that, organic, all that stuff. This kind of pay to play idea that's pitched to rich white people. That's sort of an aspirational lifestyle thing. There's also this idea of like health and development and fitness as like escape. I taught yoga for all these years, and so anyone who's been in yoga world that has that is paying attention. You know, these people that have these incredible bodies and can do every single posture and do things that you're like, wow, that's incredible that like even a human can do that, period. And yet their life is a fucking disaster. So there's all these ways in which we use different aspects of the whole wellness industrial complex as escapism, as bypass, as abuse of ourselves and each other, as self-harm. I've injured myself. I've injured the shit out of myself doing yoga. That's like a big journey that I'm on right now. Is the journey out of this idea of yoga practice as it was sold to me in the West into something that's more actually more accurately addressing my body. And why? So what is the deal? So there's pain and suffering, and it's obviously like if you're in pain all the time, and we're not necessarily talking about chronic pain, or I mean we are for sure, but we're not necessarily talking about issues of like true ability where your body, like no matter how many soul retrievals and this and that and therapies you work with, that, and we'll kind of talk about this, your normal level of pain. We're talking about the acute things that we know are not right in our own selves. So all the weird illnesses, whether they're normalized in the culture around us or not, because they often are, but that doesn't, it's often really harmful and sucky when you're like, wow, everyone around me is feeling this pain, like low back pain is like a real common one. But we don't have to. And I don't want this. You know what I mean? And taking drugs for it is not really doing the doing it. Getting stuck with all kind of needles is not really doing it. There's just that sense of like, I want more from my life. That was where I was in my early 20s of like, I'm too goddamn young to be feeling this level of pain. Not just discomfort, but like extreme pain, joints swelling up, rejecting my food, all kind of crazy things that were happening to me. So all this contemporary malaise, yes, health is often, and healing often starts with, I'm in intense pain or some form of real discomfort or unsustainability. It could be mental, emotional, etc. And it's not working for me. And and oftentimes it just looks like, let me just get out of pain into comfort so I can be like everyone else and just watch TV and go to movies and stare at my phone all day and do my shitty job that I don't care about, you know what I mean, and do things that I don't really care about, and maybe try to like have some decent sex and find a partner along the way, and just like just try to like survive. So I'm not just talking about survival, though that's a part of it, right? Because if you're not surviving, if you're like barely holding on in the contemporary world, you can't think about anything else beyond that. So one aspect of health is getting out of survival needs. Your needs are met. You need a foundation of health, and that begs the question, which I'll get to in a second, of what are my basic needs. But the second aspect of health is really more proactive in terms of like, why am I here? And that was a really pivotal understanding. And I really encourage checking out Christina's show, Why Shamanism Now, because she talks really beautifully about the why am I here as a human? What is my health supporting? Am I just here to be a consumer? Am I just here to do the things my parents did? Am I just here to survive and just like barely make it through and then die of something at some point, based on whatever statistics I have going on? No, am I here? If I'm really rooting it into these teachings, which this is my hypothesis right now, is that I'm here as a soul given a body on the agreement that I'll bring medicine forward into the world and grow my soul in the process and all of that stuff. So health for me is about doing the thing that you are here to do. And, but if you're like in abject suffering and in survival mode, it can be hard to think that far. Some of us can be in both of those. I was certainly in both of those where I was like in survival mode and still really trying to do the thing that I was here to do and somehow managing to do it, but watching it completely always go sideways and really like blow up in my face and hurt people sometimes. So, or waste a lot of resources and waste a lot of energy. Feel like, God, I really thought this is the thing that I wanted to do. And I would get off the stage or, get done with a show or a gig or something, just be so drained and destroyed, covered in bruises, that kind of thing. So it's about like sustainability. It's about being able to do the thing that I can do, that I'm here to do, and actually do it over and over, and grow with it and not just destroy myself. Because we all know people like that, right? That do the thing that they are here to do and destroy themselves through it. And that's very romanticized often in the culture. And it's a really good book by Liz Gilbert called Big Magic, where she really destroys a lot around, she's goofy, new age, whatever, but like that book is fucking fire and really will fuck, like that messed me up. I was like, oh my god, I'm not ready for this. She does a lot of busting around that myth of the suffering artist, which I find really valuable, and I go back to that a lot actually as I still am learning to not suffer for my art, because right now I'm writing full-time ish, and more than I ever have, with more commitment than I ever have, and it's really hurting my back after 6 years of working on my feet. More than 6 years of working on my feet, years, like most of my adult life, I never worked behind a desk or anything like that. Now that I do, it's like, oh my God, now I see what y'all are talking about. This is fucking crazy. And yet this is the thing, this is part of the thing that I'm here to do. So how do I do it without destroying myself? So, two things that I think about a lot are efficacy. Am I actually doing the thing that I think I'm doing? And is it effective? Is it working the way that I think it is? Hopefully it's working better, or it should always be surprising me in some way. It's not just like, here's what I think I'm doing, and it just expressed exactly as that, because that's not how life works. But is it effective? And that's relative to you. Is it sustainable? Can you keep doing it? If it is effective, can you keep doing it? Or did it fuck you up and you're hungover for a week? So that kind of thing. So effective and sustainable. Those are like key ones for me. Why is this important for divination? Because if we're dragging around unhealed wounds, if we are in abject suffering, if our basic needs are not met, then the divination is basically there's usually the reason for that is all kind of dragged around from childhood. Something is missing, something is in excess, something is way out of balance in that case, and so the spirit information is going to be run through that filter. And so then that's where I start to think, well, actually, Saturn hates me. Saturn, the planet. Saturn, the planet, it hates me. My Saturn return was a grave punishment, and I'm just a miserable piece of shit. Or, some people take it the other way. I'm just like, wow, my life is so amazing. The planets must really favor me. Look at all these favorable aspects I have in my chart, whether that has to do with privilege or whatever, like socially. And so nothing I can do could be wrong in this. It's all just meant to be. So, like meanwhile behind you, like you're leaving a, battlefield of broken relationships and burnt bridges and people that are hurt, and the whole third world is supporting your consumptive habits. But yeah, sure, Jupiter really favors you. So that kind of thing. So we have to be able to have a sense of wholeness and clarity, or else all the information that we receive, whether it's from a book, from a helping spirit, from an astrologer, from my own emotions, are all going to be warped by that. So that's why I think it's really important. That's kind of why I backed up, because I was like, I can't just spew astrology at you and expect it to actually land in a healthy way, in a way that like is going to be helpful. So this is what I want to teach. I want to bring in the healing modalities that have been the most effective for me. Two things that are really important about health and healing for me that I've been learning is what's mine to do and what's another person's to do for me or on my behalf. So I worked with a craniosacral guy last week, and he went on this wild rant about how basically with the with the thrust of what he was saying was that if I was good enough, I could figure out how to do this myself. And I just was so, trying to reserve judgment as best I can. But I hear this so much from healers. And what it feels like is that they don't have the healers that they need in their lives, or they don't have the modalities that they need in their lives. And it's neither here nor there why someone else is saying something that I think is bullshit, but but this idea that we should be able to do everything ourselves, complete bullshit. Sorry, that's not the way the world works. We are human organisms in like a really meticulously evolved over billions of years cosmos, even before there's life on the planet. You know what I mean? Like planets don't exist on their own. There's no planet without the fucking sun. So on a meta macro level and a micro level, we're all connected. That's animism textbook, period. There's just this wide interconnection between everything. In like the old Buddhist texts, as interpreted by like Joanna Macy, she's one of my faves. It Do you talk about the, I won't attempt to say it in Pali, mutual co-arising. Everything arises with everything else. But to put that in really personal terms, I can masturbate, but I can't have sex with another person without another person. And without that, there's no human race. You know what I mean? I can mentally masturbate, and I do a lot. Not to be pervy, but I can't have a conversation truly by myself, and I'm not meant to. And that would be a really sad world. And if that's the world you want to live in, go try it. Your body will not thrive there, because there's a thing that happens to infants when they're not touched, and it's called failure to thrive. So I think the independence thing, the individualism thing in shadow, is very rooted in just childhood wounding, as of just, we didn't get what we needed as children. That's this culture. You know what I mean? Sorry, it sucks. It just is. Um, on the other hand, there's a whole other sort of idea that if I have the money, someone else should be able to do it for me. And that's also bullshit, because there are certain things I must get my cavities filled by my dentist. That would be a really wild thing to try and do by myself. um, but I'm sure someone's done it. But my dentist does not come over and brush my teeth every day. You know what I mean? And if I could pay a dentist to do that, really awkward, probably wouldn't do that good of a job. We don't really like going to the dentist. I don't want that. You know what I mean? But I do need to brush my teeth. My teeth need to be brushed. And it's actually quite empowering for me. Like all the years that I was wasted, um, I always brush my teeth every night, almost every night. And that was such a source of stability, was just that basic Virgo sixth house brushing my teeth. I was like in a blackout, in a full drag face, on acid, still brushing my teeth, you know? And my teeth are pretty damn good. I've never had a cavity. I'm 34. So there you go, which is neither here nor there. But so there's things that I must do, and there's things that people must do for me. And that together is the duality that creates health, I think. And that's expressed in the chart. If you think of the astrology, all the houses of the zodiac, 1 through 12 on the wheel as a wholeness, which it is, that's its design. 1 through 7, we talked about this last week. 1, the things I must do for myself. 7, the things that others must do for me. And that's not to say that it's all transactional either. You know what I mean? Because hopefully it's not just transactional, that I'm having a good conversation with someone. I didn't just pay them. I have my therapist for that, but that's a whole different level of conversation. So, so those are two things that, as you're looking for health, what are the things that I must do, and what are the things that I must ask for help with? So the second way that I organize this is in the cosmology that I practice within. And it's got the same elements as the classical astrology, same elements as reclaiming Wicca to a certain degree, which is more of a 5-element system. And that's kind of where I'm at. I'm in kind of like a 4/5 elemental system, whereas I understand the 4 primary elements, and I still think there's like a 5th ineffable thing in the center that helps me locate certain things. Not everyone chooses to do it that way, but find your system and start to organize your life. And that's how we start to find health. Or that's one way. That's been really helpful for me. And that was really helpful for me way before I had anything but just like books on Wicca. And so it's really funny because like a lot of like dorky atheists will be like, you really can't think that the world is like made of like the primary elements like earth, fire, air, and water, right? And I'm like, like, are you a child? You know what I mean? Like, can you not hold more than one idea? Are you a fundamentalist Christian about your science? Many people are. It's not the same. I'm not telling you that the world is made of earth, fire, air, and water, but I'm also not telling you that it's not. You know what I mean? I think atomic system that comes to us from Western science and chemistry and physics is great for certain things. But the elements, and maybe if you want to use that as your cosmology, you can get really refined with your sense of health. Most of those elements, not a lot of them we don't want in the human body. We don't want too much radon or whatever. So I think it's easier to just go with what's simple. But symbolically, there's an energy there behind, and you really can reach into those energies and they can help us organize our lives. So I'll go around the wheel a little bit, and this is my medicine wheel that I use. It's pretty cross-cultural. There's a lot of different traditions that use it the same way, but you may find that in the directions or the on the compass of your medicine wheel, you have different elements in different directions, and that's fine. So discover that for yourself. You might want paper, you might want to like write it down. You might just want to do a visualization and come back to it. I like columns and lists versus graphics. That's just me. Some people want the graphic, so figure it out yourself. Or some other way. I'm sure there's a million ways to take an organizational tool and actually put it on paper. So starting in the East actually, I'm going to start in the South with fire. So fire in this reading, let's work with fire first in terms of just choice and will. So choices that I make affect my health, how much I eat at the meal, how much I sleep, that sense of tending my hearth fire, tending the fire inside of me, tending my energy level. If I'm really fucking tired and then I still try to do like 4 more hours of work, that kind of stuff. That's a real thing about choices. Addiction sits inside of this. So everything you're doing, you're practicing, you're getting really good at. And so that might be a sobering thought for most of us. What is the practice? Am I really good at swiping on Instagram? Am I really good at binging on Netflix? Am I really good at blacking out on the weekends? You know what I mean? Many of us are, and there's no shame around that. Look at it as pure choice and start to work with it in that sense. Fire is what we do, what we make, what we create. I do think that creativity in some form is a real essential piece of health. And so if I don't have some sort of creative pursuit, something that I do with my hands or, in some metaphorical way, something that I'm making, like the way in which I prepare food, all of these little things that I do, this is the Mars, to put it astrologically, that all affects my health and my state of health. And you can notice sometimes a direct relationship between your state of health and balance and the things that you do. If the things that you make that you love are breaking, you know what I mean? When I used to have a physical cleaning business, I would often break things in clients' homes. And that was like this actual really visible expression for me of, one, why I shouldn't be cleaning people's homes, and two, how other ways in which I was really out of balance at that time. So that's what I look for in fire in the chart. It also we can also look at it in a line between fire and earth in terms of the body in general. So do you sweat? Do you have an exercise routine in any way, shape, or form? That's really relative to each person. Is it effective and sustainable for you? Should be, and enjoyable, hopefully, should be we should actually add that: effective, sustainable, enjoyable. Not always like it's all like butterflies and rainbows, but it shouldn't be abject suffering. It shouldn't be, I do my Bikram yoga 90 minutes a day. And I had a student never took her arms down during, and she was amazing, but I was just like, okay, like this is a little intense. So that kind of thing. Is it effective, sustainable? Are you using it to harm yourself or not? And you can look at all your choices as that. Why am I blacking out? What did I want from this? Well, I drink because I have social anxiety. Did the drinking actually address your social anxiety? Yes, in the moment. In terms of sustainability, long term, no. It actually maybe made my social anxiety worse. That was the case for me. So, starting to look at it. Effective, sustainable, enjoyable fire choices. The body, physical movement is a need of your body, period. You do not get a pass from that. You don't have to do the same movement that I do at all. You shouldn't, because you have a different body than me. So find the people that are like you. Find your friends. that are kind of like on your same vibe, you're aesthetically, you know what I mean? Like if you're a real dyed-in-the-wool crust punk and that's your whole thing, what are your crusty friends that are like healthier than you doing? They all go on critical mass and bike. Go bike with them. It's like you don't have to like do what I do, like journey way. I'm really into the journey far afield of my comfort zone. So right now I do strength training with a personal trainer who's kind of like a physical therapist who's helping me rebuild my body in a tennis gym in the suburbs where I grew up, with all these like 15-year-old girls who can bench press like 4 times the amount that I can. It's really interesting. Yoga was a really big step out of my comfort zone. But guess why I did it? Because I had friends that invited me and I went with friends and it was free. So, find the thing, find the next step. That's a really effective and sustainable choice. It doesn't need to be, I'm suddenly a triathlete. Find your next step. That's like really all you should ever ask of yourself. You might have a goal in mind, a vision, but what's the next step? Fire is really good teacher of that. And remember that as we work with these spirit energies, even if you're really, really in survival mode and you're really, really mistrusting your interpretations, please feel free to sit in meditation with fire or go on a shamanic journey to fire, or dance fire or take fire on a walk and really, or journal with fire or any of these spirit energies and start to assess for yourself, what is fire's next step for you? For a while in New York, I just walked around carrying a book of matches in my pocket at all times. Now, granted, I was smoking weed all the time and I always wanted to have a fire making implement and a lighter. But for me, that was this little symbolic act of balancing my fire because I was just discovering astrology in depth at that time and recognizing that I actually have a ton of fire in my chart. And it was like, whoa. And everything in my life like catches on fire and burns in some form. So maybe I should figure that out. So just little things like that can be really helpful, um, in moving through this kind of exploration. Okay, so moving to water, I tend to locate with the emotions and the emotional body. You can't be healthy without emotions. I'm sorry. I wish I please, of anyone in the world, I'm the one that has wished the most of a life without emotions because I have a Scorpio moon. And so my emotions are just so exquisitely intense, and big. And so your emotions are gifts. They need to flow. They need to move. They need expression, that doesn't always look the same, emotion to emotion or moment to moment with the same emotion, but they do need expression and they do need attention. You do need to be in relationship with your emotions. There are many ways to come into relationship with your emotions. The books that have been so pivotal for me as a very empathic person, have been The Language of Emotions and The Art of Empathy by Carla McLaren. Those books fucked me up and really changed my life. Therapy, I just started therapy for the first time at 34 in the year of 2021. I had other ways of working with my emotions. Yoga, crying in yoga class, crying while doing drag, that kind of thing. I got what I needed. Those weren't always the best ways. Breakups. I engineered so many ugly breakups, friends, lovers, communities, etc. And then I would walk around different cities I lived crying. I would read the New Yorker and cry at the news. I'd listen to really sad music and cry. That was my emotional flow at a certain point. Um, Nowadays I have a little more refinement. My emotions all want to do different things. They all want different expression. So it's really just about looking at this as another little circle on your medicine wheel and starting to explore what is my relationship to my emotions. Do I feel my emotions? Some of us are really distant processors that really need help getting to the emotions. We need language, um, like presence language and focusing or something like that to really get to the emotions. Some of us are really over identified with our emotions. And if we're angry, we are anger and we're just this wrathful being. So there's all these different ways in which that can express for different people, but just basic basic foundation, you need a relationship with your emotions. They need to flow. And water can be a really beautiful help elementally. Go to the water and grieve and cry. Go, if you don't have a therapist, go find a body of water, start making offerings there and start coming into relationship, or just pour some in a bowl and come into relationship with water and ask water, what is your next step in order to actually have right relationship with your emotions? For me, dance has been completely vital for my emotions, and I'll talk about it more when we get to the fifth element. But I basically need to dance multiple times a week in order to have healthy emotional flow and not be a nightmare. And that's just something I've learned about myself. And it's so great that I have that, because dance is, I consider it one of those fifth element things because it actually touches all the elements really well. So, and my ideal is always to be doing modalities that actually do touch more than one element for the most part, because I only have so much time in a day. So moving on, because I'm talking too much, we don't have that much time. Earth, we're looking at body, we're looking at surroundings, depending on your cosmology. We're also looking at spirit. And so there's a really interesting connection I won't go too deeply into in cosmologies where we locate spirit with Earth. Because typically we think of Earth as just substance, material, matter, body, things like that. And so to look at it that way as an extension, what is your home looking like? What is your house? What's going on in your house? If you got a messy room, chances are that's echoing out into your life in some way. As above, so below. Working with Earth can really be a lot about the divination of the world. You know, telling my friend how like God rolled the dice, right? And the material world became incarnate. And that was God's draw of the tarot. And we're all living that out. Or it's she keeps drawing it. So, you know, a true diviner, we can look at the physical world as a divination in and of itself, looking at the health of the body, looking at this physicality of my room. If all my shit is all fucked up and everywhere, and I've got, you know, like a big leak coming down, and I haven't paid the rent, you know what I mean? That's a mess. That's going to tell you some things. So survival stuff, what are my true needs? Do I have a healthy foundation? Food, water, shelter, stable source of income, stable relationship with that kind of stuff. If you know what I mean, like you ever have that friend that always forgets to eat, and then 6 hours later they're hangry and they're going crazy and they don't know why everything around them is so chaotic? And how did I address that? Because I used to be that friend. Meal prep. I just do it whether I'm hungry or not. I eat the 3 meals whether I'm hungry or not. They are reasonable size and portion. They save me a lot of money, like big time. And I make the same thing all the time. They're very consistent, so they're easier for me to digest. I feel nourished by them because I make them, and I have this long-standing relationship with this whole thing, and I really do it. And I do it as an act of foundation for myself. I do it as an act of care for my body. And that consistency is the foundation on which I've built my life. Go to bed at the same time. You know what I mean? Just things like that. So that when I do find myself in a weird place on a Saturday night, staying up really late, and I actually didn't bring my meal, it's not going to derail my life to have a hamburger late at night and stay up a little too late that night, because for the most part I have held that consistency. So that's those basic needs. But also the thing that we want to look at here is, does it nourish your spirit? Does your home environment really feel like yours? Do you really feel like you're putting that act of love into how you're tending your environment, tending your body? Do the clothes you wear speak to you of what you value? You know what I mean? Do you need some like jewelry or something that's like, I'm going to put this one big fat crystal pendant on there so that people know that I'm a weirdo that likes crystals, because I just love it, because I just like crystals. You know what I mean? Like there's just little things that we often tend to not think about in terms of nourishing the spirit. We also everyone needs it to a certain level. Some people are going to get their spirit nourished by watching Jeopardy or something. You know, I don't know, that's a bad example. By reading the encyclopedia. Some people are going to get their spirit nourished by like really in-depth research into Byzantine aspects of um, rental, renters' rights and tenants' rights and stuff like that. But, I get my spirit nourished by sitting in ceremony with spirit every day. That's a practice that I have access to, that many people have access to. There's all these different ways. So whether it's a direct relationship with spirit, some way that you relate to your spirit has to happen in order for your body to be healthy. Some people are going to get that nourished by being out in nature. I think all of us need more time with the unbuilt environment than we ever will understand truly and ever be able to truly meet. So regular, proactive, go on that hike, go sit in the park, go talk to your favorite tree, even if you're in the middle of New York City and there's just that one tree of heaven that's sprouting like a weed, between the cement and the wall. I love those. They're really amazing teachers. They came from another continent and they're just doing the best they can. Whether they're invasive or not, that's a tree and they have a wisdom that we do not have. So that kind of thing, all the different ways that you nourish your body, your spirit, your sense of the earth. And do you have a relationship with like, is it effective and sustainable the way in which you use your resources? If you're going out gambling every weekend and blowing hundreds of dollars, if you're going and popping bottles, you know what I mean? If you never look at your check account and you just work. I used to do this, work as much as you possibly can so that you never have to look at your bank account. I'm still kind of in this mode, to be honest. And then it's all just like, oh, see no evil, hear no evil. Like, you know what I mean? Like you have to have a relationship with resources or else it's just going to be a mess. So, and it doesn't feel healthy to not. So those are things that I could locate in the north here of our cosmology. Finally, moving into the east, mental health, big one. Let's start with the words that we use. Is the language you use really reflective of who you are? You know what I mean? Does the language you use really reflect what you value? Do you honor people's pronouns? Are you saying things that are actually sort of flatly colonial or racist at their heart? Is the language that you use fully appropriated from another culture? That kind of thing. What thought forms are you letting in? Whose articles, whose think pieces are you reading? What kind of crap are you putting in your head? Are you just binging Netflix all day? Are you ever stimulating your mind? Now, stimulating the mind is really different for me than other people. Not everyone wants to read the New Yorker cover to cover or go in depth and read like an intellectual academic kind of text. I tend to softball between the academic text and like I'm reading like Less Than Zero by Bret Easton Ellis, which is just garbage. You know what I mean? But it's like pop fiction, whatever. So like, it's not that you always need to be bludgeoning your head with the encyclopedia, but your mind does need stimulation. It does need activity. And for some of us, it really needs stillness. And it needs those practices like meditation, Vipassana style stuff, where you really are just coming into presence and bringing your mind into presence with the other elements. So the mind needs stuff. Mental health. Are you working your own nerves? What Christina says all the time. Are you constantly like hashing over the same stuff? Are you not addressing the anxiety and stuff like that? These are all really like particular aspects that might show up. I don't think we're going to get to the fifth element today because we only have 10 more minutes. That's okay. So those are ways to organize things to really get super basic about it. Last few minutes, let's talk about let's talk about the fifth element just a little bit. So lots of things will actually bridge the gap between them. And those are the things that I think are really, really valuable. Qigong, yoga, dance, the holistic movement forms that actually allow you to come into meditative presence mentally in and bring the mind into relationship with the emotions because remember it's a medicine wheel. So for me, east and west, mind and emotions hold each other in balance, body and spirit hold each other in balance, or body and choices, choices that I make, body and will, spirit and will, that whatever, I don't know. I mean, it's all choices that we're making, to be honest, but all of that should hold itself in a dynamic tension. And we want to start working with the things probably, if I just go to the gym, Well, there's a way in which it's diagnostic and or a remedy at certain times. Like I'm not super I go to the gym now. I get enough from my other holistic practices that I go to the gym really to fix my body, not fix it because it was broken, but it was broken. I had all these injuries, to repair the injuries, to remedy the issues that I was experiencing physically. But I also call in the earth element from my earth shrine and call in my helping spirits when I'm working out. Because one, it was hard walking into a gym and like trying to like take ownership of my gender in the gym and all that stuff is really scary. Um, but actually I am more nourished by things being more holistic. So the more connections I can make in the medicine wheel or pentagram or however you look at it, are valuable for me. So yoga was that for me for years. Before I had yoga, drag was that performance, but it has to hit all the elements. So you might ask yourself how you can bring the other elements into the thing that you already do. If you bike a ton and that brings you a lot of mental focus, or you run marathons, here's a good example. And the marathons really help you stay in right relationship with your mind and emotions, and they really help your physical body process stuff. Then maybe you just need to have a little prayer practice and ask your helping spirits to come run that marathon with you or whatever it is. Like, and it might already be nourishing your spirit, and it might just take you to really like look at that and recognize that for that to become fully nourishing. So, and we're only so what we'll talk about next week more is the mine not mine dichotomy, and like when I need to seek a healing and stuff like that. And we'll talk more next week about the stuff that I want to teach, and I hope that y'all continue to reach out so that we can start gathering a little group. um, why do I want to teach this stuff? Well, no, let me finish the thought. So finding as many things as we can that nourish all elements of who you are. You might also find that you have other elements of who you are. Like some people just really need music in your life, so plop that in there somewhere. Where does music live for you? Is music one of the things that brings all the elements together? Awesome. It's like bringing the things together. That's one aspect of health, is balance and wholeness, really having that balance between the aspects of who I am, not one over the other, then not like my mind dominating my emotions or my emotions overpowering my mind, but them sitting in balance so I can feel my feelings, and I can think about my thoughts, and think about my ethics, my values. That's another good mental one to think about. What are my ethics? What are my beliefs? If I believe that Black trans women are the most marginalized people and the most at risk in the culture that I live in, and that I, as a white cis passing person, and in some way benefiting from that marginalization, what am I doing about it? Do you know what I mean? Really getting strategic with the mind. This is where the mind can really go nuts in terms of, okay, cool. I look at my list of things. Maybe I list out what I'm doing in each space, and I realize that like the body piece is like really lacking. So I start to think about it instead of collapsing around shame and I'm just this fucked up addict, blah blah blah, and all my friends are in shape and I'm not, or whatever. My dad hit me, and just I go there. But think about it strategically. Let your mind go nuts and think about how you can bring the body into some of the things that you're doing. You know what I mean? If you play guitar, maybe you just need to like, do some push-ups and jog a little bit if before you practice guitar for an hour, and, hunch over the guitar, whatever it is. Like there's ways in which the elements can be brought into balance and want to be brought into balance. Ask the elements themselves, whether it's earth, air, fire, water. Ask your mind in a visualization, your body, your heart, your emotions, your spirit, to come to the table and see who's got the loudest voice, see who's hogging the mic. You know what I mean? See who needs to be given a little urging to speak up a little bit. Listen for what your next steps are, and just start to look for those things. Make it really sustainable for you, make it really available, make it the most easy thing that you could think of. Start there, do that for a week, move on. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to end there. It shouldn't end there, but really just take it in baby steps. That's been my path. I went to yoga like once a week, sometimes once every 3 weeks, really hungover. but it worked. It got me to where I needed to go. It brought other things into my drag practice so that suddenly my drag was becoming very transformative. It's just like it's a journey for sure. But the one thing that I'll say, which we'll talk about more next week because I just didn't get to what I all that I thought I would talk about today, is that this idea that it's always process is a truism. Yes, we are always in a life process. We're always in process as long as we are alive. And then we move into a dying process, and then we die, and then we move into a whole other thing, a reconciliation process, hopefully. But this idea that we commonly hear in the contemporary West of like, well, we're all just messy and there's no real adulthood and this and that, that's bullshit. That's bypass, that's addiction. There are processes that we must move through: recovery from addiction processes, healing process, healing from particular trauma. Each trauma is its own process. That process should not be your whole life. Your childhood should not be your entire life the same way from start to finish. There are arcs that need beginning, middle, and end. And if we're not finding that, then we're not doing the things that we need to do, and likely also not asking for the help that we need and getting it. That's not an effective or sustainable way to live. It's a really immature way to live. And I'm not saying that to judge or shame anyone. I'm just saying that to show to actually be here as an embodiment of hope. I have healed certain things, not bypassed them, not ignored them, not pretended like they don't exist, not drugged them away, not, like magic and rainbows, whatever. I have gone into the wound, from the wound itself, from the very beginning, done the arc that I needed, made the changes that I needed, restored what needed to be restored, transformed what needed to be transformed, and come out the other side different. And so that's healing, that's health. We should be doing that consistently through our whole lives. Should not be dragging the one wound around the whole time. So if you need help right now and you think you're ready to endeavor to do this, we can do this in session together. We can strategize. This is what I do sometimes with folks. If you need help and you need a healing, and you don't know who to call, I will connect you with my network. I don't do healing work on others' behalf, but I have really amazing colleagues and mentors and teachers that do. Yeah, and if you're just like, what the fuck, shoot me a DM. We can talk about it. I will always try to gear those calls to the most effective and sustainable and enjoyable way for me to work, which is that we set up an hour to talk or half an hour. But, just because I don't think we can really get it done on the DM, but if you just need to spam someone's inbox, you can do mine. It's okay. At some point, I might be like, okay, cool. No longer feels effective and sustainable, but that's fine. So I hope this is helpful. We'll talk more next week. Remind me, please, next week about what's mine, what's not mine, and more modalities in that really clinch all the elements and really tie things up in a beautiful way. So I give deep honoring and love and gratitude to the spirits below and above, to the spirits of each direction, to these primary elements of earth and air and fire and water, to the spirits of the land and the helping spirits and the ancestral helping spirits of everyone who joined us and will join us. Thank you so much. Thank you for health and wholeness and all the ways in which you've poked and prodded me onto this path and of taking the next step. Alrighty, big love, everyone. Step out of the circle. We release this energy to the earth and the heavens to be recycled and restored and made new. And we move out into the rest of our days.